I'd like to call to order the Clarkston Independence District Library Board of Trustees meeting for February 12th at 6:03. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Jan Gaffney. Here. Michelle Ginn. Here. Dan Green.
Here.
Mary Hendrick absent. Allison McFadden Kiesling.
Here.
Marilyn Pomeroy.
Here.
Ann Rose. Here. Julie Meredith here.
All right. I'll accept the motion for approval of the agenda. I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. We'll now have the call to the public.
Hi there, I'm Julie Siflowitz on behalf of the Friends of the Library. A few things this evening. We are now going to be able, as of the spring, the April book sale, able to accept credit cards for sales of books. So we've looked into that and decided to purchase a tablet and the device that we need that's necessary so that you can either slide or insert your credit card. So we're going to start that. We'll see how that goes in April. And we're also looking into using that to take membership fees or the annual dues with a credit card in the hopes that that will make it easier for folks. They can do it right online. Connor is looking into how that's going to work out. So we'll see and keep you posted on that. But I'm excited about that. I think that's moving us ahead and all that. We're also going to, you'll see on the Friends website that there'll be information about how to link to PayPal, because that's what it's going to be through. So folks can use their own credit card, but it will then download into a PayPal account. And then Julie will be notified here at the library when purchases come in, whether it's a membership fee, hopefully, or a purchase of books. And they charge, I don't know what the interest rate is, but it's less for nonprofits. And since the Friends are a nonprofit, it won't be so expensive. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. But back to the website, PayPal will be listed there, a link to that. These are different ways that you can contribute to Friends, to donate to Friends. Also, Amazon Smile, we've set that up. So if any of you purchase from Amazon, I don't know if you're familiar with Smile, but you can choose a nonprofit, a charity, and every time you order from that website, which is smile.amazon.com, 0.5% of your purchase will go to that charity. So I think you can't use it on mobile devices. I think that's what I found out. You have to do it, because I really tried hard to do that, but I couldn't. So I had to go back on my desktop.
I
So
do it from my tablet.
do you?
Yes.
Well, I was having trouble. Maybe it was just the day. I'll have to try it
Yeah.
again.
I don't know if I've ever done it from my phone, but I'm sure I've done it from a
okay.
tablet. I thought I had done it from the phone, but that I'm not as positive of.
So first you have to set up an account. So just go in there and look for smile.amazon.com, set up an account, you choose your charity. You can actually change it, because I had a different charity set up, but now that the Friends are in there, we're going to do that. So anyway, but that will also be a link on the website. Also Kroger Rewards in the memorial donation section. So we're excited about all of that. And then second, the Teen Art Show is coming up at the end of March. It's going to be March 28th. Alexa came and visited us at our meeting on Thursday and told us about everything that's going on with that. She is promoting it to the middle school, the junior high, high school, and Renaissance High. It's Wednesday, March 28th, 6 to 8 p.m. New this year is a call for volunteers on Sign Up Genius. So just like we can sign up to volunteer for the book sale on Sign Up Genius, now we can do it for the Teen Art Show. So there's a number of different things that can be done day before, day of, and if you're not available then, even coming in early in March to put labels, etc., on the postcards that we're mailing out. So there's lots of things that you can do there. And then finally, the spring general membership meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. right here. So we hope you'll be able to join us then. And that's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's quite a bit. Anybody have any questions or comments? If not, I'll end the call to the public at 6:08, and I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Does anyone want to remove any particular item? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. All right, library statistics.
Okay, so you have your statistics in front of you. Brad is the one who seems to be enjoying giving us statistical reports the most. He's in charge of all of our online downloadable e-content. He wanted to point out that Overdrive, last month we had the third highest total to date from the number of patrons, so that's up. Downloads, we had the highest total to date, which surpassed our second highest by a full 5%. The Hoopla patrons, highest total to date, is up by 15% from our second highest. Downloads, highest total to date, surpassed the second highest by 18%. So these are jumping by leaps and bounds. Let's see, RB Digital, which is the magazines, it is the highest total to date. It was very, very close to the previous one. It only went up a smidge. But the number of downloads went up by another 10%. So quite a lot of growth in our e-content, which is really very exciting. So we've had unprecedented growth, and he is attributing this to two things. Our new website is doing a great job of highlighting our e-resources and funneling people to these services. And also the promotion of Pack Pass at the library, which is our collaboration with the schools for the students. On the website and during trips to the schools has created top-of-mind awareness of our e-resources among students and school faculty. So he had some thoughts behind what was causing this rapid growth.
This surge.
This big surge. He and Tracy have been doing a lot of presentations through the schools, and he's really enjoying that because, of course, his particular position doesn't really get him out of the building much, and so now he's having a reason to go out and do presentations, and I think he's finding it very rewarding. So, and he's excited to see the growth that comes from those presentations.
All right. Now let's hear the library's director's report in small print, because there's so much.
Sorry. Okay, so in general information, due to a power outage, the library closed on February 6th at 7:30 p.m. The power was restored around 10:45 p.m. and the library's IT manager was able to reboot all the servers and equipment for a smooth opening the next morning. On February 9th, the library closed at 2:30 p.m. for inclement weather. We were in communication with the township offices throughout the day, and when the fire department expressed concern about the roads, the township supervisor decided to close town hall early. The township clerk notified us so that we could use this information as part of our own decision process. And after a conversation with the library board president, we decided 2:30 as a closure time. So try to get everybody home safely before it got dark. On February 6th, at the request of the township supervisor, the library board president and library director met with the township supervisor, the township assessor, and the township's attorney regarding the Sashabaw Road Corridor Improvement Authority. They are interested in the library board considering opting the library's millage back into the CIA and offered a number of possible options to encourage the board to do so. They will be providing some additional information about these possibilities which I will add to the March agenda for library board review. I got those Friday and today, so not in time to get them into the board packet, but they'll be in next month, so we can look at it then. In terms of project updates, on January 29th, I facilitated a community conversation for the city council and city residents to discuss their goals for the upcoming fiscal year. The people that attended the meeting stated that they felt it was a productive conversation. There are a number of complicated issues facing the city, such as parking, sidewalk repairs, etc., and the discussion resulted in a suggestion that additional conversations, separate from the council's regular decision-making meetings, each focused on one specific issue, could be a productive way to move forward. The city had planned a community conversation with us regarding downtown parking on February 5th. For various reasons, they canceled the meeting, but after discussion on January 29th, it sounds like they may be interested in rescheduling that event. Hasn't been rescheduled yet, but I think it probably will be. Next item, during the recent thaw a few weeks ago, it was noticed that a significant crack has developed between phases 2 and 3 of the parking lot project. Due to the freeze-thaw cycles of spring, there is concern that the crack could widen and become more serious. In the interest of addressing this as soon as possible, I've already contacted our engineer, who has been in contact with the contractor. They intend to let us know what repairs will be needed and how much of it they will cover. The concern is that they would cover the crack that has developed between phases 2 and 3, but there also, I think, is a crack between phases 1 and 2. That may not be covered. So we'll have them take a look at everything and we'll have to decide.
It would be covered because?
Because it may be past its length of warranty. I don't know exactly if you call it warranty or guarantee, but between 2 and 3, it's not even a year old yet. So, which is why I called them right away, so that they could get on it.
Very wise.
Yeah. Next item, we have come to the final stage of space planning in the adult computer lab, which is to install glass back in the windows and address a heating and cooling issue that occurs in that space due to all the computers, the number of people, and the large eastern window. The building was built in 1992, and that space was designed as a quiet study room, not a computer lab. In addition, the heat in that room actually comes from 2 overlapping sources, the unit that covers the meeting room and the unit that covers the entire adult area. There are 3 steps remaining. I've contacted a local glass contractor for a quote on reinstalling the windows. I'm looking into a woodworker to create a wood frame to hold the glass in place and also match the current trim. And I have our HVAC contractor pricing out a heating and cooling solution that would make the room's climate controls independent from the main system. And as information on these pieces come in, I'll bring them to the board for review, but we're still working on that. Next one item, at the last meeting, the library board approved me to attend a workshop in Georgia that focuses on community engagement, assessing community need, and communicating the library's value. Because of limited class size and the popularity of this event, there was a chance I would not be able to attend, but I was able to register and will be attending this workshop in July, so I'm very excited about that. I was worried they only take 100 people, and they said it has been known to sell out in minutes. So I got right in there at 1 o'clock when it opened, and I'm in.
Sounds worthwhile.
I was very excited. The next item is really about the things that Julie Sislowitz was talking about being able to take credit card donations through PayPal, and also smile.amazon.com. So I won't reiterate that, but I'll just let you know that I thought it was exciting too, so I put it in my report too. And then also on January 29th, we reinstated interlibrary loan between our library and all the buildings at the Clarkson Community Schools. It actually went live on January 29th. We were very excited about that. This is a great way for students and teachers to access our resources when they may not be able to visit the library. They make the request through their media center. We pull the requested items, check them out to the school, and the school's inter-school delivery service distributes them to the buildings. Deliveries take place on Mondays and Thursdays. This was a very successful program several years ago, but budget issues after the economic decline eliminated this service in 2010. So we're very excited to be collaborating on this again. And the teachers and the students are very excited as well. So we're very excited about that.
Good to have it back.
It is good to have it back. Yeah, it is very good to have it back.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Julie?
Well, I have a question about the CIA, but I'll wait till next month when the information comes.
Yeah, they provided some various options that they would be interested in talking about. Marilyn and I talked to them at length about sort of what their goals were, how much money they thought they were going to need, that sort of thing. So we'll have a a more comprehensive report next month. We just didn't have it quite all put together. We didn't have the pieces of additional data that they were going to send us in time for this meeting, so I didn't want to rush it.
Okay. Let's move to regular business. Number one is our board self-evaluation project.
So the library's management team developed an employee evaluation system that the board reviewed in 2017. A subcommittee of the library board developed a library director evaluation system that the board also reviewed in 2017. And during these projects, the board broached the topic of creating a library board self-evaluation system. And the library board president would like to discuss a process for this project with the whole board. I don't have anything else to say. That's all I got.
Maryland does.
So let me
Maryland does, yeah,
just
right.
speak briefly about this, since the director's evaluation and the staff evaluation follow a similar line. They're set up in such a way. In discussions about evaluating the board, I really think that our focus is on function. Are we pleased with the way in which we're operating? We currently operate with a set of subgroups, and most of us are involved in some other aspect of library hiring or salaries or staff evaluation projects. And so everyone is working on a subcommittee. So the question is, do we feel that this process, this way are working, is functioning the way we would like it to? So rather than a review of how any individual person is functioning, we're really more interested in how the board is functioning. And when we originally set up, Jan and I and Mary were all on the original board that set up the district library agreement. And at that time, it was felt that we would prefer to have board members appointed, and we also would prefer that board members were appointed based on the skill sets that they could bring to our functioning. So it's nice to have someone in finance and someone in PR and someone in library services so that we have a varied view, education and so forth. So we can react and anticipate things that are coming up. So Julie is in the process of sort of gathering some possible things for us to look at. Samples. I don't think it needs to be a very involved process, but I think it's wise, since everyone is being evaluated, that we should also do a self-evaluation of how well we're functioning as a group.
Yeah.
So if that meets your approval, we'll have Julie prepare some things so that we can, whether we want to have a board workshop at looking at some of these later.
That piece of it, yeah, that piece of it, I don't really, I think it's really important to do it. I think, just because it will generate discussion among ourselves.
Yes.
Because I would like to know what more I could maybe do individually, but if you look at how the board is performing as a whole, you can kind of see where there might be
Areas in which we could.
shift things around a
Yes.
little bit. I mean, the goal would be obviously to improve I think we're doing a great job, by the way. But I think that
So modest.
there's always room for improvement, and I think
Yes.
that you know, we should be looking at how we can improve what we're giving to the community.
Yes. So that's the goal, and just kind of a working statement that this is where we're at, and if this is meets the board's approval, Julie will continue to gather a few items. I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
No.
So if we find something that might fit in, nicely dovetail with the other evaluations, as we've now run through one cycle with those and gotten feedback on how well they have worked. And I think the board was pleased with the process of the evaluation of the library director, which was more our purview. And we were very pleased with how that went and how the staff collaborated with us and gave us additional information. So I think that's worked well, and I'd like to move on so that during this year, we can see if we can have a look at how we think we're progressing. The terms now end in 2019.
December 31st of 2019, yes.
Right. So we'd like to do it during this cycle. so that we
That's a
can
good
make
idea.
recommendations for improvements.
Good idea.
So I guess my question is this something that you want to review these samples that I'm pulling? Do you want a subcommittee to do that? Do you want me to distribute it to the whole board and you then, as Marilyn said, have a board workshop where you discuss it together? What would be your wishes in
I
terms
mean,
of how to?
we could have a subcommittee that would narrow down the options, but I think a full board workshop to do the
To do the
actual
actual,
review.
okay. My question was more how you want to decide what sort of a system you wanted
Yeah.
to, that's the first step, I would think, is to figure out what kind of
Yeah.
a system that you want to use, so.
Seems like a subcommittee, and I know I'm like volunteering myself here, but it seems like a subcommittee to look at those, you know, what
Yeah.
Julie puts together and kind of pick what's the best
Yes.
for everybody.
Make some
It seems like it
narrow-
might be really cumbersome for the whole board to try to narrow it down.
That's right.
So I'll
That sounds
volunteer.
like a good approach, and to keep it from being too many at one time.
Right,
And
right.
then we can look at it after that.
So do we have any volunteers who would be interested in such a project? That's our
Yeah, I
first.
volunteered myself, but I
I'm
need
betting
I need
that
other
you-
people to,
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the last subcommittee, but I would like to, for some of the other board members to have an opportunity to serve on that subcommittee.
Right, because we had, Jan and Dan and I served on the subcommittee that worked on the other evaluations. And so if Jan volunteers again,
She'd be the lead.
yeah, and she would, because she has experience with the others, but we would like,
I see how this is going.
Was that your intention?
was that Jan or Dan?
I don't know.
No, I would really love to, but I think it's important for,
To get
spread this
a
around.
couple other views.
Yeah.
Allison?
Okay.
I can do it.
All right.
I don't know, now is there a great deal of reading involved in this, so.
I don't know that there would be a great deal of reading. The one sample I found I thought was a little lengthy. I don't think you're going to go with that one because I thought it was a little bit of overkill from my perspective. You might pull things from
Then
it.
I could probably manage that.
Okay, that's, because you have experience in library operations also.
But having read through the system that we use for the staff and the system that we use for the library director, I think you've been sort of opting toward a more simplistic, streamlined system, and so I have a feeling that you'll be wanting to do the same thing here, and that if you do look at a more complicated system, you're going to be stripping it down to make it a little less, some of them are a little unwieldy, and I don't know if that's really what you're looking for, so. Okay.
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. That's good. So when,
Well, is Dan going to be on this too?
this one will be Jan, Allison, and, okay.
We can't have more
I'd like
than.
We can't have more than three, because otherwise we have to have a meeting.
Yeah, that's a special meeting, so.
So that would be excellent.
Sure. I have some samples already pulled together, so what I can do is email them out to you and print them out, put them in your mailboxes so that you can either read them online or look at them in hard copy. I know some of you are note takers and need to write on them, and others of you would prefer to skim on the screen. So I can provide them in both ways, and then we can set up some time to kind of
Okay.
go through and get your
All right.
feedback. And
Right.
Okay.
And then when you're ready, we'll have a board workshop, so we can really go through them and discuss them and find something that works well.
Yeah.
Is there a timeline that we're thinking, a deadline for when we? Are we thinking by the end of the year? Are we thinking by the end of the term? You know?
I would think by the end of the year, and hopefully even, you know, sooner than that, sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Unless it's very complicated, I don't see any reason why, once we've picked out a format, that we couldn't do it with one workshop and
Right.
do it. And
By September?
I would like to see it done by September before, because we
Or
have all
right
those other
after, if
things
we're working,
happening.
depending on if we're working on the budget,
Yeah.
right after that.
I was
Yeah.
thinking we were going to meet in 2 weeks. I was going to say, we could meet in 2 weeks, but you're not talking about that fast.
Not necessarily, it
Okay.
depends on, you know.
It depends on how quickly it comes
Yeah.
together. If you find
Yeah.
2 or 3 you think are great, we'll speed it up.
The department heads found when we designed the staff evaluation system for, the evaluation system for the staff, that when we got started, it was, when we actually started to pick and choose what you wanted to do, that process of doing a draft and then correcting the draft and then doing a draft and correcting the draft and whatever. It ended up taking a little longer than we anticipated because we spent a lot of time tweaking and taking some from this sample and some from
Yeah.
that sample. And so that construction of the actual tool that you want to use is the part that takes the longest. The evaluation itself is probably one meeting.
Yeah.
But I would hate for you to say, oh, we're going to have it done in a month, because I think that would
No, I
probably be...
think that it would be more involved than that. And, you know, and if for some reason it gets really complicated, then we'll, you know, I don't think we have to beat ourselves up about a deadline other than, I would like to see it done this year,
Okay,
rather than doing it too close to the end of the terms. I would rather do it a little more in advance, and we can kind of, if we're going to make some changes in how we do things, we can kind of do that while we have all of the experienced
Board
members. But hopefully, you know, hopefully we'll all stay, but.
Okay.
the samples that I found, just so that you have some idea, like I said, one of them is very large and unwieldy, but it's comprehensive, so that's probably a good one that you can pick and choose pieces out of. But some of the other ones are very, very short and streamlined, so that's why I have a feeling that the actual creation process might take a little bit of extra time, where you find that middle ground that's the best fit, so.
Okay, so
Very good.
we have direction on that. In that case, let's move to the bank project.
Okay. The library board, treasurer, and library director are always monitoring and thinking about the way the library's funds are held and invested. In an effort to diversify the accounts and ensure library funds are properly insured through the FDIC, we've been reviewing additional strategies and options for managing the library's finances. So we're going to present you with some of our findings. In the little pile of paperwork that I gave you, there's two pieces of paper. The bank that we're going to be talking about tonight is Fifth Third. I'll be a little candid. We've had some trouble with the local banks wanting to work with us. I don't know what the cause of that might be. I don't know if they really like working with governmental entities. Our current bank is Flagstar. Flagstar has a government division. None of the other local banks seem to have a government division. So when I call them, by the time they've bounced me around to 15 people trying to figure out who would handle us, they determine that we're a business, and then they start to talk to us and discover that we're not like a business, and there isn't really the expertise that's needed. So we've struggled a little bit in trying to do that. So Fifth Third is the one that I've been speaking to recently, and they are actually sort of, I don't want to say they're bending over backwards, but they're trying really hard to make sure that they fully understand a governmental entity versus a business. And what we're trying to do is divide up the amounts of money that we have. Obviously, as you know, the money comes in the winter tax bill between December and February. So our entire budget comes in right at the front end of it, $1.8 million. We need to diversify that out into banks so that it's fully insured, and then we spend it down over the course of the year. So the problem is you put all this money into these banks and then you draw it all out, and by the end of the year you have a bunch of bank accounts that are very, very small, where they once have been fairly sizable. So that might be why banks are not real excited about doing this. I don't know. They haven't been real candid. They just don't call me back. So Fifth Third, I've talked to the way that we need to divide our money. The FDIC will insure for our government entity 2 accounts, one that is a checking account and one that is some sort of a savings account. So anything that would have some interest attached to it, at $250,000 each. So we currently have money in the Clarkston State Bank, and that's how we have it. A chunk of our fund balance is that way, and it just sort of lives in that account. And I make sure that they don't go dormant, but that money lives in that account. I'm proposing, and Jan and I have talked about this, I'm proposing we do something similar with Fifth Third. So we would take $250,000, we would put it in one of these checking options and some sort of a savings option, and then over the course of the year, as we need it, we would transfer it into our active account where we write all of our checks off of it. So then that diversifies it out, and by the end of the year, we would be taking money from the various accounts, Clarkston State Bank and Fifth Third and Flagstar, making sure that we end up with some money left in each of the accounts so that they don't get the smoke they close out, and that we don't end up getting fees charged because we don't have enough on deposit. So you can take a minute to look at the options in terms of the kinds of accounts that are here. The other piece that I've included is a resolution. The board needs to approve a resolution designating who would be responsible and authorized to open those accounts and sign on those accounts. I'm assuming you're going to want to use the same people that we have on our other accounts.
Now, in your discussion with them, what did you think about how these accounts, standard, premium, or elite, fit into the way in which we tend to transact business?
In terms of the checking accounts, if this is just going to be a deposit account where money is going to live, there aren't going to be all these transactions. There'll be minimal transactions.
But we could transfer the money from the savings into the checking as we needed it, right?
Yeah, so those would be the transactions that would take place, and they wouldn't be multiple smaller transactions, they would be larger transactions.
Right.
That we could potentially be wiring money from one bank to another in a
Right,
larger chunk.
because our bills are paid out of the checking account
Yep.
at the other bank.
So if you, for example, if you were to look on the consent agenda, a check run is usually about $35,000. So we would need to make sure there's enough money in our Flag Star account so that we wouldn't, obviously, so we wouldn't overdraw it. So we might move larger chunks in order to do that.
And I know 250,000 is pretty standard, but there's no difference for it being a governmental agency. We're not allowed to keep more money in there and still have it FDIC, okay.
No, what we do get is two. Businesses
Two.
only get one.
Oh, okay.
So they can have one account at $250,000. As a government entity, we get one checking and one savings. So we get two accounts at $250,000.
So 500 theoretically per bank.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's no penalty for not writing checks.
Nope.
Except if it
No,
goes
it's-
dormant. That's a
There's no
problem.
Except that I do have to make sure to move
Yeah.
like $1 once a year between the two accounts to make sure nothing goes dormant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or there's some of the banks allow you to, if you log in online once a month, it won't go dormant, even if you don't do anything, and other banks require that you have to do something, so.
But this is kind of, a game to balance all of that out.
Yep.
And we are still, thinking at some point in the future, we might like to do something with some CDs, which are a conservative enough investment, but we're trying to find a solution for that, which would be not tying the money up for long periods of time, because this is our operating money that we're
Right.
talking about, so.
I got a question about CDs. Are they FDIC protected?
And they would be separate, so that's one of the methods that we can use, because it's guaranteed money in a CD. That was the conversation that I had with the bank, that in terms of the money just sitting in a bank account, FDIC insures it, but in terms of it being a CD is a certificate of deposit, and it is guaranteed. It's the point at which you take it out of the CD and put it into a bank account. So you can move it from one CD to another CD when the time runs out, or you can renew that CD and keep it going, and it would still be insured. So that's the other method that we can use.
And could you keep a CD over the $500,000 in a given bank, or no? You have to have a separate bank again?
No, you'd be able to use the same bank. You would just need to decide which bank has a system of CDs that, and the way that's why on the flip side of this, you'll see that there's some information about how they monitor. Different banks provide that information in different ways. Some of them send you an email, some of them expect you to log in and keep track of it yourself. They're just, some of them are, so.
And whether we need to ladder them or...
Exactly.
So we're not, at
Exactly.
this point in time, really quite ready to go there. We need something that will work, that,
We can
that can be liquid enough,
Right.
Right.
that it's not tied up for, 2 years or 3 years at a time. But that it's also not so complicated that it adds a huge amount of extra work to Julie's job. So we're working on that, but in the meantime, I've been concerned all along at how much money is not insured.
And when I've talked to the various banks, it's interesting because municipalities have different feelings on this in terms of being insured, because you're talking about large sums of money. Some boards determine they want every penny insured, and they're very, very careful, and they will have multiple banks in order to do that. Other municipalities, especially larger municipalities, have so much money
Yes.
that they just make sure that it's in a reliable bank, and it depends
A
on how.
bank too big to fail?
Yeah, I've heard of those.
So it depends on how you feel about it. I had a pretty candid conversation with a rep from one of the banks who said, it's not uncommon for municipalities not to have every penny insured, so.
But we also are not one of those big agencies,
Exactly.
and this is everything we have.
Absolutely.
This is our, this is what we need in order to provide services. So and I tend to personally have a very low tolerance for risk. So the less risk that we're taking, the more comfortable I am. I feel that way with my own money, and I feel even more strongly when it's the taxpayers' money.
She and I are on the same page with this, that's why this has been an important project. I was trying to figure out the best place to put it in and to be able to feel very secure and to be able to look the public in the eye and say, we feel good about this.
Yeah, and I did like the interest that the people that came and met with us from Fifth Third took in what it is that we're doing here, and trying to understand the library's function and, how it is that we get money in and how we're spending money. So I was comfortable with that. Obviously, if for some reason this doesn't work out, if we're not happy with the service we're getting, you can open bank accounts and you can close bank accounts. So we're not locked in for any long period of time if we're not happy with it. But I would like to see something done as this money is coming in so that we're better protected.
Well, I like the fact that we have a particular people who would be working with us.
Yes.
I like that, because then you know who your contact is.
And Fifth Third, when they came, I had been working specifically with Wayne. When we got our meeting set up, Wayne was unable to come, but he sent Jessica, who is actually the manager of the branch here in Clarkston, and then Alita, who is the regional manager, came, and as Jan mentioned, they spent a lot of time sort of really talking to us about how we use our money, how the cash flow works, what kinds of the way we purchase things, the way the money comes and goes, how quickly we spend it over the course of the year. Are we spending it evenly month to month? Are we spending a lot at the front end and less on the back end? We really spent a lot of time getting to know what it is we were doing. So we felt like when they were sending the information that they had taken the time to point us in the right direction to what would make sense for us. So.
It's good to know person.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pleased with that, because I know how difficult this has been and how many banks have been approached, and, no, we don't want your 250,000 or fairly.
It's been a process.
It's been a process, and it's been difficult. So I was very pleased that Fifth Third demonstrated an interest in helping this community organization.
And they're a good-sized bank. It's not like they're not just a tiny, small local bank, but they do seem to have a corporate policy about trying to be community-minded. So, and they say, well, we have a small bank feel, even though we're a good-sized bank, and right. And who knows if that's really, that kind of will play out as things go along. But it's not just a tiny little bank. It is a bigger bank. It's less likely to fail. The bigger banks probably won't, but no guarantees.
And one of our goals is to work within the community as much as possible. We're spending taxpayer money. We'd like to spend it close to home.
Right.
So I'm very pleased with the presentation.
Okay. And I think you did, if you like the people that you talk to, that's a big step right there.
Pardon? A little bit, share that. I didn't hear all of that.
Oh, I think all the legwork has been done. And if you really like the people that you talk to, that's a big step, that they make you feel comfortable and that they're going to be there for, for us, for whenever anything needs to be discussed or anything. That's really important to keep it like that.
Well, and it's almost like a test when you talk to a bank and you say, now, we're a governmental entity, not a business, and the response that we got was, well, this is what we believe is the policy for a government, but I'm going back and I'm calling the FDIC and I'm making sure, and she literally went back to the office and emailed us both right after that and said, you know, this is what I found out, I have confirmed that what you were telling me is accurate, and I have also found out these details, and it felt like she understood what our concern was, is that you can't really treat us like a business because we're not a business, and if you do that, then you're not following the correct set of policies.
And she had enough interest to go back and look that all up and verify it.
Exactly.
Because they're interested in having the account.
And not assuming that they knew, but saying, you know what, if you're a government, that could potentially be different than a business, and I don't fully understand it necessarily, and I'm going to make sure that I do. So they're going to try to make sure they're pointing us in the right direction, that they're not giving us misinformation, which is reassuring. So,
That is,
Are we ready to make a motion?
I think we could.
So the process for this evening, if you're going to do this, it would be a resolution. The resolution would basically authorize Jan and I to go ahead and open the two accounts that we've discussed, so one checking and one savings, and then designate the 4 people who would be the signers on the account. And because it is a resolution, it needs to be a roll call vote. I did put on the back side of the information from Wayne a possible motion to help you out a little bit. I did a little bit of homework. Basically what I did was I looked how we did Flagstar, how we did Clarkson State Bank, and that kind of thing. So we're following the same process. And I provided you with a resolution.
That's what I was just wondering, how much we needed to actually put in the motion, and we'll just do the resolution.
We need 2 resolutions or 1?
I believe just one.
Just one?
Yep, I think you need
So
one.
add 2.
I think you need a motion that would approve the resolution, and then I need to provide those minutes to the bank. Is there anything am I missing anything?
No, I don't think so. I think-
Okay, I'm pretty sure I had it, but then you were kind of looking at me like I was missing a detail there, so.
There it is,
Not
okay,
there.
because I'm looking at a different piece of paper.
Well, I'm comfortable with this, and I move that we approve the resolution that Fifth Third Bank will be designated as a depository of funds for the Clarkson Independence District Library.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call. Jan Gaffney,
Yes.
Michelle Ginn,
Yes.
Dan Green,
Yes.
Mary Kimberg absent, Allison McFadden Kiesling,
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy,
Yes.
Ann Rose.
Yes. Now, do we need a resolution to certify who should be signing this?
The resolution includes the names right in
Includes the
it.
names right
Yep,
in there.
so you're right there.
So we're all set.
Basically, what your resolution says is that 2 of these 4 people have the ability to open the account, and all 4 people have the ability to sign the names. So, but I assume that probably Jan and I would do that, and
We say thank you, right, Dan?
Yes. Very much so.
I just volunteered Jan, she's been stuck on this project with me.
Well, you know, then it'll be done and I'll feel good about it.
Yep, no, I think it's going, I think it went pretty well,
Yep.
so.
All right. In that case, I will accept a move for adjournment, a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And therefore, we are adjourned at, I can never see the
6:45.
6:45?
Yeah.
6:45.
All right. We're adjourned at 6:45.
Thank you.